Chosen ones, you're the detective everyone fears in town because your stolen inheritance is being returned to you right now, and the cosmic alarm bells are ringing across all dimensions as the greatest spiritual heist in universal history finally gets exposed by the one person with detective abilities powerful enough to crack the case. Right now, shadow operatives who orchestrated your systematic dispossession are scrambling in pure terror because your detective consciousness has awakened and begun assembling evidence that will bring their entire criminal empire crashing down. The shocking revelation about downloading into your awareness will shatter every false belief about why your life hasn't reflected your true spiritual authority. While you struggled through what appeared to be random misfortunes, you were actually conducting the most sophisticated spiritual investigation ever undertaken by a chosen soul, gathering proof that your entire existence has been hijacked by forces who recognized your detective potential before you did and spent decades constructing elaborate prisons to contain your investigative awakening. You're about to discover that every closed door, every betrayal, every financial struggle was a calculated move in the most elaborate inheritance theft conspiracy ever attempted against divine bloodline, and your supernatural detective abilities have been documenting evidence of this cosmic crime while your conscious mind struggled to process the magnitude of what was happening. Like a master detective walking through a crime scene where everyone else sees random chaos, you've been unconsciously cataloging spiritual evidence that exists beyond ordinary perception, building the case that will restore everything stolen from your birthright, while establishing your legend as the investigator who solved the unsolvable mystery. The streetlights that flickered whenever you walked beneath them weren't electrical problems. Illumination systems detected your elevated spiritual frequency and struggled to maintain consistent power output in your presence. The automatic faucets in public restrooms that refused to activate despite clear hand placement weren't sensor malfunctions. Water distribution networks recognized your energetic signature and activated conservation protocols to limit your access to purification resources. The escalators that suddenly stopped moving when you stepped onto them weren't mechanical failures. Vertical transportation systems received instructions to create physical obstacles that would delay your arrival at destinations where evidence might be discovered. The revolving doors that jammed during your passage weren't maintenance issues. Building access controls activated resistance protocols to discourage your entry into spaces containing witnesses or documentation. The hand dryers in public facilities that shut off immediately after activation weren't energy-saving features. Air circulation systems prevented you from accessing the cleansing frequencies that would enhance your investigative clarity. The paper towel dispensers that released single sheets despite multiple pulls weren't designed for conservation. Sanitation supply networks limited your access to tools that might be used for evidence preservation, but catastrophically underestimated one crucial factor. You carry ancient detective DNA that activates precisely when your destiny faces its greatest threat, and your case is about to explode into reality like a spiritual atomic bomb that no force in the universe can contain or deny. Every relationship disruption in your life has been engineered to distract you from following the trail of your stolen legacy. They signed your name on documents while laughing behind closed doors, occupied spaces meant for your expansion while celebrating your perceived ignorance, created chaos in your personal life, all to prevent you from discovering that you've been the target of the most sophisticated identity theft operation ever attempted against a chosen soul. The banks that rejected your applications despite perfect qualifications weren't following standard protocols. They were executing orders from shadow networks that flagged your spiritual signature as a threat to their fraudulent empire. The employers who passed you over for positions you were overqualified for weren't making business decisions. They were participating in a coordinated effort to keep you financially restricted, while your stolen assets generated profits in their unauthorized accounts. Every coincidental delay in your life served a calculated purpose in their grand design. the lease applications that mysteriously stalled, the opportunities that evaporated despite initial enthusiasm, the investments that failed against all logical prediction. These weren't random misfortunes. They were tactical maneuvers designed to exhaust your resources and eliminate your capacity for independent investigation into your true circumstances. Your oppressors believed their schemes would remain forever hidden in shadow, but their arrogance blinded them to one critical reality: you possess supernatural detective abilities they could never comprehend. Their limited perception couldn't grasp the spiritual investigation skills embedded in your divine DNA. Their short-sighted vision failed to recognize the cosmic investigator walking among them in human form. While they thought you were breaking, you were developing spiritual X-ray vision that penetrates the densest deceptions. While they believed you were lost, your divine GPS was activating to pinpoint exactly where your stolen blessings were hidden. While they assumed you were blind to their schemes, your third eye was opening to truths they desperately tried to conceal. Your spiritual senses were upgrading precisely when they thought you were at your weakest. The recurring dreams where you walked through mansions with your name carved into marble foundations weren't wishful fantasies. They were your detective consciousness, accessing actual property records stored in dimensional archives, where your true ownership documents remain unaltered. The visions of bank vaults opening to reveal accounts with your authentic signature weren't psychological compensation for financial stress. They were spiritual reconnaissance missions, revealing hidden assets accumulated through your legitimate inheritance. This isn't merely about property or money, though massive abundance is definitely flowing back to you. This is about you solving the greatest heist ever attempted against your destiny through your own spiritual intelligence. You've unraveled conspiracies that would have remained buried forever if anyone else had been targeted. Your unique spiritual fingerprint contains investigative abilities programmed specifically to decode this particular mystery. The cosmic architects designed your detective skills for this exact situation. Universal intelligence encoded your DNA with specific investigation protocols, activated only by this precise frequency of injustice. Those who pretended to be you, wearing your identity while looting your birthright, never understood who confronted them. Your human form concealed the spiritual detective with cosmic investigation skills coursing through your veins. The parking meters that consistently malfunctioned in your presence weren't random mechanical failures. Your elevated energetic frequency disrupts technology designed to extract resources from your vicinity. The elevators that mysteriously skipped your floor despite clear button presses weren't experiencing technical glitches. Building systems programmed to limit your access recognized your spiritual signature as a threat to unauthorized operations. Watch now as the house of deception collapses under the weight of your discoveries. That moment when pieces started coming together wasn't coincidence or lucky guessing. Your supernatural investigation skills activated precisely when programmed to awaken. Your ability to sense something fundamentally wrong despite elaborate cover-ups represents your divine detective system operating beyond physical limitations. The automatic doors that hesitated before opening in your presence weren't sensor malfunctions. Security systems detected your investigative energy and attempted to delay your access to areas where evidence might be discovered. The ATMs that displayed unusual messages during your transactions weren't software errors. Banking networks recognized your authentic financial signature and struggled to reconcile it with artificially imposed limitations. Those dreams revealing hidden information weren't random sleep experiences. Your spiritual surveillance program continued operating while your conscious mind rested. Every hunch, every intuitive nudge, every coincidental discovery represents sophisticated spiritual investigation methodology. Every seemingly random encounter that provided missing pieces demonstrates cosmic intelligence supporting your detective work. The Wi-Fi networks that dropped connection whenever you researched specific topics weren't connectivity issues. Digital monitoring systems activated interference protocols to prevent your investigation from accessing crucial online evidence. The search results that returned irrelevant information despite precise queries weren't algorithm failures. Information suppression programs diverted your research away from documentation that would advance your case. The synchronicities appearing in your life transcend meaningless coincidence. Cosmic confirmations of your investigation progress manifest as divine breadcrumbs. Each meaningful connection serves as validation laid by universal intelligence, guiding you toward the next revelation. These spiritual signposts appear precisely when needed, illuminating the subsequent step in your detective journey while confirming the accuracy of your investigative direction. You've activated ancestral memory codes that give you access to investigation techniques perfected across countless generations of your spiritual lineage. Your forebears, advanced souls who mastered similar cosmic cases, now work through you, lending their expertise to your investigation. Their collective wisdom floods your consciousness when you need it most, providing breakthroughs that seem to materialize from nowhere but actually come from everywhere. The lawyers who claimed your cases were impossible to prove weren't giving honest legal advice. They were gatekeepers placed strategically to discourage your pursuit of justice. The financial advisors who steered you away from certain investments weren't protecting your interests. They were preventing you from discovering accounts where your stolen wealth was being laundered through legitimate-appearing transactions. Every document you requested that mysteriously couldn't be located was actually transferred to secure facilities where your authentic records are preserved as evidence in cosmic courts. The bureaucrats who insisted your paperwork was insufficient weren't following standard procedures. They were executing specific protocols designed to delay your investigation while additional evidence was being systematically destroyed. The perpetrators never realized they were leaving energetic evidence at every turn, karmic fingerprints visible only to someone with your unique spiritual sight accumulated with each deceptive action. Each fraudulent signature created ripples in the quantum field that you could detect and trace back to its source. Your ability to perceive these subtle disturbances in the universal fabric represents spiritual forensics at its most advanced level. Your phone calls that dropped during crucial conversations weren't technical malfunctions. They were targeted interference designed to prevent you from connecting with witnesses who could corroborate your investigation. The emails that disappeared from your sent folder weren't system glitches. They were evidence of sophisticated monitoring operations, tracking your communications while selectively blocking messages that might advance your case. The insurance policies that couldn't be located in company databases weren't lost paperwork. They were deliberately archived in restricted access systems because they contained beneficiary information that would expose the true scope of your inheritance. The property deeds that allegedly never existed were actually stored in specialized vaults where authentic documentation waits for your detective work to locate the correct jurisdictional keys. Your inheritance wasn't just stolen, it was hidden across dimensional barriers and secured behind frequency locks they believed impenetrable. Keys to your kingdom were concealed in vibrational vaults while imposters walked through corridors meant for your feet. Your wealth was disguised with energetic camouflage, while thieves spent what was amassed for your divine purpose. But they never calculated one critical variable: you can see through dimensions. Your spiritual vision penetrates veils that stop ordinary perception. Your intuitive tracking follows trails invisible to the naked eye. Your detective senses decode frequency patterns specifically designed to hide your prosperity. Your spiritual forensic abilities extract evidence from etheric signatures most would never detect. The tax records that showed no trace of your legitimate income weren't proof of your financial insignificance. They were evidence of systematic suppression designed to hide the massive wealth streams that rightfully flow through your name. The credit reports that reflected artificial limitations weren't accurate assessments of your true financial capacity. They were fabricated documents created to support the illusion that you possessed nothing worth investigating. The almighty hand now moves in response to your detective work, not as the initiator, but as the enforcer of the case you built through spiritual investigation. Because you solved this mystery through your own supernatural detective skills, cosmic forces deploy to your assistance as backup arrives after the primary investigator cracks the case. Spiritual evidence you gathered across multiple planes now manifests in physical reality as interdimensional exhibits materialize into tangible proof. The Universal Tribunal has been monitoring your case from the beginning. They've watched as you methodically gathered evidence that others couldn't see, evidence that exists on multiple planes of reality simultaneously. This tribunal, composed of enlightened beings who maintain cosmic order, stands ready to enforce the divine judgment that your spiritual detective work has made possible. For those who orchestrated your dispossession, your investigation brings swift consequences that no amount of running can evade. Documents they falsified now reveal their tampering because you followed spiritual breadcrumbs to their hidden locations in both physical filing cabinets and etheric record halls. Signatures they forged now expose their fraud because you trusted your intuition about where to look and which experts to consult across multiple dimensions of reality. Witnesses they paid now confess the full extent of the conspiracy because your energy field compels truth when you enter a room, creating a spiritual deposition environment no false testimony can withstand. Accounts they thought untraceable now leave glowing trails directly to their doorsteps because your detective work illuminated every transaction across all financial dimensions. You've walked through fire and emerged as a master spiritual detective with skills refined by the very adversity designed to break you. Every clue you followed despite discouragement from those who couldn't see what you perceived, every hunch you pursued against advice to let it go, every piece of evidence you spiritually discerned when no physical proof yet existed, all of this has been logged in the cosmic record as testimony to your investigative brilliance. Your spiritual investigation skills have assembled a case so airtight that not even the craftiest cosmic criminals can escape its conclusions or appeal its verdicts in any court across the multiverse. Your detective methodology has established new precedents in the universal justice system that will guide investigations for spiritual generations to come. What appears as simply getting back property and money represents your victory in spiritual warfare fought on battlefields most humans never perceive. The real estate deeds, the bank accounts, the insurance policies, the investment portfolios, these are merely physical manifestations of spiritual birthright that enemies tried to hijack through interdimensional identity theft. You tracked them down across dimensions that don't even have names in human language and reclaimed what's yours through supernatural investigation abilities that operate beyond space-time constraints. Your detective work crossed barriers most never even perceive. Your spiritual search warrant authorized access to records normally sealed from human awareness. The cosmic scales tip dramatically as your evidence forces recognition across multiple dimensions. Watch as those who mocked your spiritual gifts and dismissed your intuitive knowledge suddenly face exposure through evidence you uncovered when they thought all traces were eliminated. Observe that those who called you mentally unstable for pursuing imaginary conspiracies now exhibit panic behaviors as the case you built reveals their crimes in undeniable detail. The real estate agents who claimed properties weren't available when you inquired weren't simply managing inventory. They were concealing assets specifically tagged for your ownership while showing them exclusively to co-conspirators in the inheritance theft network. The appraisers who provided suspiciously low valuations on properties you attempted to purchase weren't following market standards. They were artificially suppressing prices to prevent you from acquiring assets that were rightfully yours. Notice how those who kept you financially trapped in cycles of lack now face economic collapse as your detective work triggers universal justice protocols, programmed to balance all equations with perfect precision. The very individuals who labeled you crazy now struggle to explain the unexplainable as your detective work manifests in physical reality before witnesses. The accountants who insisted certain calculations were impossible weren't demonstrating mathematical limitations. They were actively concealing computational evidence that would reveal the true scope of wealth accumulated under your name. The trustees who claimed fiduciary responsibility while blocking your access to inherited assets weren't protecting legal interests, they were participating in the systematic looting of resources designated for your stewardship. Your oppressors sense their impending exposure, though they lack spiritual understanding to articulate their growing dread. They feel walls closing in but don't recognize it's your investigation reaching a conclusion after extended periods of meticulous evidence gathering. They sense watching eyes but don't realize it's your spiritual surveillance collecting final proof before full disclosure becomes inevitable. Their time of hiding has ended because your detective work exposed every shadow. Their attempts to escape universal jurisdiction fail as your case establishes their liability across all dimensional borders. The same confidence they displayed while systematically dismantling your spiritual infrastructure transforms into terror as they discover that stealing from someone with your detective abilities sets consequences in motion that transcend physical limitations. The witnesses who previously claimed no knowledge of your circumstances now experience spontaneous memory recovery as your energy field compels truth disclosure. The associates who maintained ignorance about fraudulent activities suddenly recall specific details about meetings where your dispossession was planned and executed. Your detective presence creates spiritual deposition environments where false testimony becomes impossible to maintain. The keys returning to your possession unlock more than physical doors to physical structures in physical neighborhoods. They represent your detective genius, breaking codes your enemies thought impenetrable, solving ciphers they believed would confuse you for lifetimes. The land being restored exists not just in geographic coordinates with surveyed boundaries, but stands as a monument to your investigative triumph territory, reclaimed through spiritual warfare, where your detective ability outmaneuvered opponents who never anticipated your strategic brilliance. The storage facilities that supposedly contained nothing under your name actually house collections of your authentic possessions, preserved exactly as they were before the theft occurred. The safety deposit boxes that bank officials claimed didn't exist suddenly materialize in computer systems as your detective work triggers the restoration of suppressed records. The vehicles registered under fraudulent documentation now reveal their true ownership through title searches your investigation makes possible. The financial resources flowing back symbolize the spiritual wealth your detective abilities reclaimed from cosmic thieves who thought they'd hidden your abundance in vaults you'd never locate. Every asset returning to you carries energetic tags identifying it as recovered through your supernatural detective operations. This isn't manifestation through wishful thinking. This is justice achieved through legitimate spiritual investigation. Your business partnerships that were dissolved through forged documents now reconstruct as the authentic agreements surface from archives where they were concealed. The intellectual property rights that were transferred without your knowledge or consent revert to your ownership as your detective work exposes the fraudulent nature of those transactions. The royalties that were redirected to unauthorized recipients begin flowing back to their legitimate destination, your accounts. Your inheritance wasn't just stolen, it was disguised across dimensional barriers and secured behind frequency locks they believed impenetrable. But your detective work penetrated every concealment, decoded every deception, and tracked every stolen asset to its hiding place. The timeline accelerates because you solved the case when all cosmic factors aligned perfectly for maximum recovery potential. Those who tried to steal your position believed they could simply step into your identity and assume your spiritual authority without detection. Fools. They failed to understand they were leaving spiritual fingerprints only you could detect with your unique forensic frequencies. Every fraudulent signature carrying energetic discrepancies, every forged document vibrating at inauthentic frequencies, every manipulated witness surrounded by the distinctive aura of coercion, all left energetic evidence your spiritual detective skills were uniquely qualified to discover. The art collections that were removed from your residences while you were deliberately kept away through manufactured emergencies now return to their proper display locations. The family heirlooms that disappeared during suspicious estate settlements emerge from private collections where they were illegally housed. The jewelry pieces that vanished during fabricated robberies resurface as your investigation exposes the insurance fraud that concealed their theft. Hey, this is my Canary cutting into your regularly scheduled Chosen One programming for just a moment. We are the founders of the Obsidian Inner Order and the Astral Atom Network, and we're done playing nice. We're in a spiritual war. You know it. We know it. We know it. And we're out here bleeding for this mission full time. I'm hungry for fourth-dimensional Archon blood, but we need the ammunition. So listen, when you join the Inner Order, you're not just supporting us, you're getting access to exclusive tools they never wanted you to have. Psychic self-defense training, targeted individual intel, spiritual warfare tactics they scrub from the internet, and every week we meet in secret, chosen ones only, on Zoom, no filters, no fluff, just real gnosis, real family, real power. It's a 360-degree win. You get what you need. We get to keep fighting, so don't just watch. Drop a like, share this video to everyone you know now, and join the Obsidian Inner Order. Let's finish what we started. Link in the description. Let's freaking go. Your position re-establishes in realms your detective skills proved were rightfully yours from the beginning. Your authority reinstates through credentials your investigation validated beyond any remaining question. Your purpose clarifies through mission objectives, your detective work recovered from hidden archives. The flood of evidence you assembled might overwhelm normal human capacity for processing cosmic crime patterns, but you've proven yourself capable of handling truth at its most concentrated intensity. When those you've caught in your spiritual investigation come crawling back with hollow apologies and transparent attempts to negotiate reduced consequences, your discernment must remain supernaturally sharp to perceive manipulation disguised as remorse. Stand firm in the authority your detective work has established across multiple planes of existence. Your case has been proven beyond any spiritual doubt. Now comes the full implementation of universal justice based on your findings. The cosmic machinery you set in motion through your meticulous spiritual investigation works with thunderous power to return everything stolen from your divine inheritance, plus accumulated interest calculated at divine rates that factor in both tangible and intangible damages. The universal banking system processes transfers of everything your detective work identified as stolen. Cosmic transportation systems activate to relocate physical assets back to their rightful owner. Reality bends under pressure from spiritual evidence that can no longer remain contained in ethereal realms. You solved this all on your own, Chosen One. Your stolen house returns to your possession through keys your investigation tracked across multiple transfers. Your inheritance flows back to your stewardship through accounts of your detective work uncovered behind elaborate concealment. Your prosperity restores to your experience through resources your investigation reclaimed from unauthorized users. The private clubs that excluded you from membership, despite your obvious qualifications, suddenly extend invitations as your true social standing becomes undeniable through documented evidence. The exclusive investment opportunities that were mysteriously unavailable when you expressed interest now actively solicit your participation as fund managers recognize your legitimate financial capacity. The educational institutions that rejected your applications despite exceptional credentials now offer retroactive admission and honorary recognition as your authentic academic achievements surface from suppressed records. The professional organizations that denied your membership applications discover administrative errors that prevented them from recognizing your legitimate qualifications. Your enemies retreat before evidence of your investigation assembled despite their coordinated interference. The last laugh belongs to you, the detective who solved the greatest inheritance heist in cosmic history when all odds were stacked against your investigation. Your detective work connected dots across multiple dimensions, building pressure in the universal justice system that physical reality cannot withstand or further delay. The patents that were filed using your research without authorization revert to your ownership as your investigation exposes the intellectual property theft. The books that were published using your concepts without attribution now generate royalties flowing directly to your accounts as the plagiarism becomes legally established. The technologies developed from your innovations begin producing licensing fees that acknowledge your rightful share of profits. The restoration isn't merely personal, it's paradigm shifting. By solving this cosmic crime, you've established new precedent in the universal record. Future generations of spiritual detectives will study your methods, your persistence, and your ultimate triumph over forces that thought themselves beyond accountability. Your case will become legendary in the annals of cosmic justice. The medical treatments that were denied through insurance manipulation suddenly become available as your authentic coverage levels are restored. The experimental procedures that were declared too expensive for your financial status now appear affordable as your true economic position emerges from concealment. The specialized care that was redirected to others while you suffered becomes accessible through provisions in insurance policies you never knew existed. Your spirit guides those luminous beings assigned to assist your investigation without solving it for you, have worked alongside your efforts with profound admiration for your detective skills. They've preserved evidence others tried to destroy through quantum interventions, maintained energetic crime scenes, others attempted to scrub clean with frequency disruptors, and guided your intuition toward crucial discoveries without overriding your free will. The charitable foundations that claimed insufficient funds to support your worthy causes suddenly discover substantial resources as your detective work reveals their participation in the wealth diversion scheme. The scholarships that were denied despite your perfect qualifications become available as selection committees acknowledge the fraudulent nature of previous evaluation processes. The shocking truth that stood before you at the beginning of this revelation has now transformed from hidden conspiracy to manifest victory. The dark forces that circled your existence have been exposed and neutralized through your own supernatural detective brilliance. Those closed doors now swing open with keys you recovered through spiritual investigation. Those betrayals now serve as evidence in the case that secured your complete restoration. The employment opportunities that were systematically blocked now compete for your attention as hiring managers discover your exceptional qualifications were previously suppressed through coordinated interference. The promotions that were denied despite your outstanding performance suddenly become available as review committees uncover evidence of discriminatory practices designed to limit your advancement. The financial struggles that once seemed like cruel fate are revealed as artificial constraints imposed to prevent your investigation, now dissolved as your abundance returns with cosmic interest. Every setback that was calculated to keep you from your inheritance has backfired spectacularly, serving instead as evidence that ensured your complete victory. The housing applications that were mysteriously rejected despite perfect credit and income documentation now receive approval as lending institutions acknowledge their participation in the systematic exclusion designed to keep you from accessing properties that enhance your detective capabilities. The neighborhoods that seemed perpetually beyond your reach become accessible as geographic barriers dissolve under pressure from your investigation. The matrix that was cracking open at the start of your awakening has now completely shattered, revealing the vast inheritance that was always yours. The shadow operatives who ran scared when your detective abilities first activated now face full exposure and cosmic justice. The universal download of truth that began with your first suspicion has reached completion, transforming not just your understanding but your entire reality. The business licenses that were denied through bureaucratic manipulation suddenly process without delay as regulatory agencies acknowledge the invalid nature of previous rejections. The professional certifications that were withheld despite your meeting all requirements become available as credentialing bodies recognize their participation in the systematic suppression of your qualifications. The investment accounts that showed artificial losses despite market gains now reflect their true performance as fund managers acknowledge the manipulation that concealed your profits. The retirement funds that were depleted through unauthorized transactions replenish themselves as the fraudulent withdrawals are reversed through legal mechanisms your investigation triggered. You stand now as living testament to what becomes possible when someone with your detective abilities refuses to accept manufactured reality as genuine truth. The investigative DNA that activated when your destiny faced its greatest threat has delivered complete victory over forces that assumed themselves beyond accountability. Your supernatural persistence that couldn't be broken by any form of spiritual warfare has established your legend across multiple dimensions of reality. The transportation systems that mysteriously malfunctioned when you needed to reach important appointments now operate flawlessly as service providers acknowledge the systematic interference that was deployed against your mobility. The communication networks that experience convenient outages during crucial conversations now maintain perfect connectivity as telecommunications companies restore your priority access levels. The cosmic crime scene has been processed, the evidence catalogued, the perpetrators identified, and justice served. Your inheritance returns not as divine charity, but as rightfully recovered property identified through legitimate spiritual investigation. Your authority reinstates not as consolation prize, but as validated credentials proven through detective work that solved the unsolvable case. Reality reshapes itself around your investigative triumph as evidence manifests into physical restoration with increasing frequency and intensity. The universal mainframe downloads complete data packets of your investigation into material experience, transforming spiritual proof into tangible recovery that no force can reverse or delay further. The educational opportunities that were blocked through administrative manipulation now actively recruit your participation as academic institutions acknowledge the invalid nature of previous exclusions. The research funding that was diverted away from your legitimate projects returns to support investigations that advance your mission rather than serve the interests of those who stole from you. The master detective who began this journey, sensing something was fundamentally wrong, now commands the complete restoration of everything that was stolen, plus interest, plus damages, plus the satisfaction of knowing that your detective genius cracked the code they thought was unbreakable. Your victory echoes through dimensions where similar crimes are attempted, serving eternal notice that certain souls cannot be permanently robbed because they possess the supernatural detective skills necessary to track down cosmic thieves. The social networks that excluded you from influential circles now extend invitations as your authentic social position becomes undeniable through documented evidence. The cultural institutions that denied your contributions suddenly recognize your work as they acknowledge their participation in the systematic suppression of your creative output. Welcome to your dominion, Master Detective. The case is closed, the inheritance returned, and the universe itself acknowledges your investigative supremacy. You didn't just solve the mystery, you rewrote the rules of cosmic justice through detective work that will be studied for spiritual generations to come. The shocking truth that once threatened to overwhelm you has become the foundation of your complete and total victory. The legacy you established through this detective triumph extends beyond personal restoration into cosmic precedent that protects future chosen ones from similar theft attempts. Your investigative methodology becomes the standard protocol that universal justice systems will reference when processing inheritance theft cases across all dimensions of reality.